But it gets better. And it gets better because the dollar amount that the people are willing to pay for leads, it turns out, I was actually low. It seems like they're actually willing to pay more than I think. And you can sell a lead to multiple vendors. Because anytime a buyer is going to buy something, if you're buying something expensive, you don't just want to check with one person. You want to check with all the people that do this, or at least a number where you feel comfortable you're not getting screwed. And so we have a qualified person who's saying, I want to buy this thing, and we can intelligently introduce them to a number of people at the same time. And everybody's happy. So I was like, now this is some good entrepreneurial math. So it's still very confusing because we have this blowing and going, successful business, employees, and an office. Like our office is now expanded. It's no longer in my apartment on 2nd Street. It's downtown Chicago. The guy who designed our office is the same guy that designed the real world houses. So it's like it's a cool place to work. We've got a reputation in the industry. And I keep thinking about people who've done, what's my real goal with this, and what do I want to do? And I really wanted to scale it up. So one thing that I've always done ever since the days here where people would come is I would always try to connect with people and understand their story and meet with them to try to understand how could they help? How are they thinking about it differently than me? Because clearly, Jeff Bezos was thinking about Amazon very differently than I was thinking about Leverworks. And the guy on the right is Matt Mullenweg. He's the founder of WordPress. And so I just kept up with all these people, all the people that came to Champaign. Jeff Bezos ended up being one of our customers. He bought the designing kits for himself just to play with his kids. And Matt Mullenweg, he had just started WordPress and I met him at a conference. I just kept up with these guys. And it turns out that one of the best ways to get introduced to investors is through a trusted referral. And so Matt got funded by True Ventures, and Matt introduced me to the True Ventures guys. So I decide what I'm going to do is raise some venture capital. So I'd never raised VC money before, to make the transition from a technology services business to an online marketplace. It helped me really expand the vision and reach now millions of people and fundamentally change the way the product development is done. And so I met with about 55 VCs, and I diligently prepared my presentation and my business plan and my executive summary, and what I learned is they do not care. What they really want is to meet you for coffee at Starbucks. So like 40 pages of business plans, like I said, it was a complete waste of time. You walk in there and they're actually not listening to what you're saying. But if you meet them for coffee at Starbucks, they're like, oh, how are you? And I'm like, no, I'm doing pretty good. So after about 35 or 40 of these meetings, I talked to Matt, and he's like, well, you should talk to our VCs. I'm like, oh, so did you prepare your plan? And he's like, no. I'm like, well, what did you do? Like, what was the first meeting? He's like, well, I went to Starbucks. Okay, good idea. So he introduced me to the guys, and I wrote back, hey, you want to meet at Starbucks? And so I fly out to Palo Alto to meet the guy at Starbucks. Much more successful. So I'm in the Bay Area, right? I'm going down Sand Hill Road. Now I'm meeting with VCs, and they're actually kind of listening because we're at Starbucks. He's getting coffee, they're relaxed, you know. I don't have like a deck. I've now distanced myself from every other presentation that they weren't listening to. And the guy starts to actually pay attention. I'm like, wow, Starbucks really works. So I go through the process and get down to about 3 to 4 VCs where they're bought into the vision, and I'm bought into them, so I think. But it's a process, and really what it comes down to is who do you want to work with? If you're going to raise money, you're not raising it from a fund. So True Ventures is our investor. You're raising it from a person. In our case, this is the guy. His name is Phil Black, and he's awesome. We got term sheets from a number of different firms, but they would say one thing, then they would change their mind. They would send us a term sheet, they're like, oh, yeah, we don't mean that anymore. I'm like, but you said it on the term sheet. Like, yes, we know we did, but this changed, that changed. With these guys, nothing ever changed. He said A, I got A. He said B, I got B. I was like, this I can work with. When there were things that didn't exactly, like, we hadn't talked about it, no problem, let's talk about it right now, we'd work it out. And so it was Phil Black that really convinced me, okay, I can trust these guys, and I want to work with these guys. And when he says he buys into the vision for doing this, he does, and he's going to be patient, because it's going to be a rocky road. I'm like, great, so I accept the term sheet from these guys, and at the time, we have, I would say, like a Model T. So I paint this glorious vision for one day we're going to change the world with product development. Millions of engineers are going to go on, find materials, and basically we have a website where you can't even sign up as a buyer. But I got a lot of screenshots of PowerPoint, and Phil buys it. So I come back, and the first time I met with them, they said no to me. But he's like, if you fix A, B, and C. So I come back with a smart card. And now you can get to the pages actually online, not just through my PowerPoint deck. And they're like, okay, we see the progress, we like the progress, we'll make the investment. And so, but I continue along the way to paint this vision of, oh, here's where we're going, here's where we're going, here's where we're going. And so what I learned through this whole process is you've got to be the hot chick, right? Because you're the entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur is the scarce resource. There's tons of money in the world, but you're the entrepreneur. You have to be the hot chick. And what does the hot chick do? They create this auction environment. So if you're going to get the best price for your valuation, you need to have more than one person involved. Even though Phil Black is awesome, you can't put all your eggs in the Phil Black basket. So how do they get the best price for that dot painting? They say, who wants a dot painting? And then people start to bid. And so I had to say, who wants Inventables, and get people to bid. Because what is a business worth? A business is worth what someone's willing to pay for it. So I got 4 people to say, here's what it's worth. And then I could confidently go back to Phil Black and say, this is what it's worth. And then he could say, I believe you, or no, I don't think so. And you can have a rational conversation about it. So if you're raising venture capital, you can't just put all your eggs in one basket. So after the Starbucks presentation, it's not really a presentation, it's more of a conversation. At some point, then they invite you back to the office, and they're like, okay, so what is this whole business you speak of? And I like to think of it, Guy Kawasaki has this thing called the 10-20-30 rule. 10 slides, 20 minutes, 30-point font. I totally buy it, because they have an attention span of a 5-year-old. They are not interested in paying attention to things. And so I didn't, like some people think that, oh, I have to get through my presentation. I just used my presentation as a way to structure a conversation. So I would say, we're going to do this, and then just shut up. And then they just come back with questions. And then they're kind of, it's like their way of learning about what you're talking about, just by asking you questions. And so we launched the site. So we closed the money, $2 million, on my birthday, April 8th of this year. And we launched the site. So now we're fundamentally changing the mission of the company. Inventables connects buyers and vendors of materials and technology. So I bet the farm, you could say, on this. And what does it look like at scale? So that's the idea is that instead of us going around and collecting these things like the gel magnets, now the vendors, just like you would on Facebook or LinkedIn, they're creating their own profiles. So we've now grown it where we were sending out 20 technologies a month. There's now 1,200 technologies and materials on the site. We're trying to grow it into the millions. And so we keep thinking about what does it look like at scale, what does it look like at scale, how can we actually scale it? And so the best way is to empower the vendors to promote themselves, but really what we're doing is we're building an interface or infrastructure, just like a shopping mall is an infrastructure for a store. We're building an infrastructure and an interface for communication and trade between people that make products like Nike shoes and people who sell materials like DuPont. And so we're helping each of these buyers and vendors. And so we keep thinking about what does it look like at scale in order to inform our decision. So so we came down here to the Career Expo because we're looking for software engineers to join our company, both as interns and full-time employees. And we have 2 positions available for technical people. One is software engineers building Ruby on Rails. Ruby on Rails is the language we're using, helping to build our application, but also interns every summer. We just had our first software engineering intern. Unfortunately, he was from Stanford, not U of I. So we'd like to have some U of I people next year.